Well, now that the road to SEMA is winding down and all but over, I am back on my sleeper project for John Bell. You can see I've got my motor in place and everything's getting tidied up. Got rid of a lot of wiring. If you look here, this is some of the wiring that I have cut out of this. This ran the old computer system and stuff, so now I've got my new computer system in on my motor, and I'm working on making it communicate with the inside of my cab so I can use the original air conditioner controls and neutral safety switch, and everything inside the truck will operate like it did factory original in 2000, and everything out here will work on its own independently as well, but the two will communicate together as one. Got my fuel system in. Today I'm working on my gauges. I've got these gauges right here, which I'll show you over here on the table what I'm working on to make those work in place. So it's coming along pretty good. Let's go over here on the table and let me show you what I'm doing on his instruments and gauges. All right, over on the table I've got his original dash bezel out, and I have set in the truck, and I've changed the angle of this just a little bit so that the gauges will set flush. If you notice, the original gauges are set back, they lean back just a little bit. Well, my gauge is going to set flush, so I've had to turn that just a little bit, and this is what I took out. Then I took the gauge set that I'm installing, which is this set right here, made by Speed Hut, and I mocked me up a little panel, and I've whittled that down, and I will roll me a piece of metal on my English wheel and cut those out, and probably rhino line that, put a little texture, not rhino line it, but just to texture coat that a little bit, paint the color of the dash bezel here, and then insert my gauges. So, all right, you can see here I've got my templates, cut my templates out for my gauges. I took my actual gauge itself and marked that out on my cardboard so I could have an exact template of the outside diameter of this gauge, along with my smaller gauges, which I've already done. Just remember, you need to really get accurate on the outside circumference of that with your mock-up pieces. It's like they said in the movie The Patriot, aim small, miss small. That's how I try to do everything here. Once I get these cut out, then I can kind of set these in place. I've got my piece of metal that I've already cut kind of in place, and then I'll lay these in place and kind of get an idea of how I want it to look, and cut these holes out and fit these in place, and then I will work on making me a bracket to mount this plate to my dash, and then this will snap back. Now, I've got my panel cut and trimmed. I changed the angle just a little bit of my gauges because they're kind of angled back in this piece here. So I've cut the top of this so that I can have my gauges mount flat and aim just directly with your face there. And then I've got this piece made. This is a piece I've made out of cardboard and templated up the gauges. And I've got it ground and clean and put some little notches to help locate it in place. And I'm going to take my bonding adhesive and I'm going to bond adhesive this to my dash here. And then once this cures tomorrow, I'll go ahead and put it on tonight and strap it all down and get it real nice and tight. And then when I come back tomorrow, I'll actually fiberglass all this in with some woven mat and completely fiberglass it in place. And then we'll put our texture coat on that area right there, and then we'll paint the color of the inner part of the dash here, and should be a real nice look. So let me get back at it here. All right, now my gauges are coming along pretty nicely. After I cut my template out to match the cluster that I had before, and then I cut my small gauges out and my large gauges out, and then I mocked them up on here. Then I took this and made it out of steel and inserted in here, and now look how it's coming along. And then I will probably, I'm not sure if I'm going to fiberglass this in, or I may end up remaking this piece out of plastic and then gluing it in. I'll probably fiberglass this in, and then I will texture coat this and spray it the color of this. And usually what I use for texture coat is you can buy the spray-on bed liner at like O'Reilly's. Spray the texture you want. The closer and wetter you make it, the less texture it has. The further back you come with your spray, the more texture it'll have. And then I will actually spray the color right here of this right in here, and it'll be a real nice blend in, and I'm waiting on my transmission indicator to come right here. So it's kicking along pretty good. I'll give you another update as I proceed along a little further. I've let my glue set all night on my bonding adhesive. It's a 2-part adhesive, 90 minutes, but I go ahead and let it set. It's been set about 12 hours. So let's cut this off. You can see I've got it zip tied and taped into place and everything else. So let me cut this off. Instead of using the mounts back in the dash like what I had before, this will be a lot easier to mount my gauges and to control how it sets in relationship to the dash. So you can kind of see how it is on the back. Now you can see how it's looking on the front. Inside here I'll spray a texture coating. I take the Duplicolor bed liner, and like I said before, I spray it. The closer and wetter you spray it, the less texture you get. If you back off, you can put a lot more texture in. So you can mimic the original texture and grain of this dash pretty close, and then put that color over top of it, and it'll blend in and look real nice. Then on the back side of where my bonding adhesive is around there, I will come back and grind that down a little bit, and I'll probably take a little piece of fiberglass and mix my bonding adhesive in with it, and wrap all the way around there, because this metal's not going to flex like the dash does, to keep that from popping off. And then I'll show you what it looks like when I get my everything painted and mounted and in place. Alright, I've got all my stuff cut off of it, and now I am going in and putting me a band around this to help reinforce it. And what I do for that is I cut me some strips on my fiberglass mat. This fiberglass mat is extremely strong. These little strands are just super strong. And usually people would put a fiberglass resin on this, but the fiberglass resin dries pretty hard and it won't flex. If it flex, it'll bust. So what I do is take some bonding adhesive. This is made by Speed Grip. It's a 90-minute bonding adhesive. And just lay your bonding adhesive around there, and then it only takes one layer. Take this and then wrap it around it, and then get you some more bonding adhesive. Just work it in with a squeegee, and you can see I've actually got a layer of this over this corner right here, all the way around this. And when this all dries and it's hard, you won't be able to tear this thing off of here. All right, here's my cluster, my dash cluster, all clean and dry. I'm drying it now to put my texture coating in it and my dye in it. So I decided to go ahead and get rid of my radio because I had 3 more gauges. So I went ahead and fabricated me a piece of metal, and I glued it into there. You can see where I put my bonding adhesive around here and around here. So next step is I'm going to be texture coating it and dyeing it. Alright, here it is with my truck bed coating sprayed in there for my texture, and my gray semi-gloss sprayed over top of that. And you're fixing to see it with all the gauges in place. And here it is all together. Pretty cool, huh?
Well, it's a very cold, freezing morning here in Springfield, Tennessee this morning, but I'm getting an early start on it. I've got my dash pretty much finished up. I'm still waiting on my indicator, but I want to go ahead and give you a look at how it looks inside the truck. So let me give you a little closer look.
Alright, let me give you a little closer look at my gauges here. You can see under here I've still got a bunch of wiring to do underneath here, getting this thing to communicate with this cab, but I got my gauges in place. Look pretty nice there. Those gauges are made by Speed Hut. I got a couple more gauges over here. This will be an air fuel meter that's digital. It lights up blue. This will be a vacuum gauge, and then my clock. Then over here I'll have a control to be able to shift my firmness and transmission shift points. Over here I'll have 2 programs in my transmission, one for daily driving and then one for performance. You just push a button, it's going to switch right to your performance mode. Right here I'll have a torque converter lockup. Push that button, that converter will lock up when it shifts a second and stay locked in all the way through the finish of your pass or race or whatever you're doing. And then over here I will have a master fan override. So if John wants to push this button and cool his engine down, he'll have control of both of his fans at all time, and the fans will be controlled by the air conditioner and by the motor temperature. The cluster here I attached these gauges to this piece right here, so that when this comes out, it all comes out as a unit. I put disconnects on every plug so that I can take this thing right out, unplug it, work on it on the dash, bring it right back in here, plug it right back in, and makes it very easy to work on. If you ever do a gauge cluster set, it's best to always just go right on ahead and make it disconnect, because you will be needing to get back into that at some point in time. So, and our next project, you can kind of see out there in the window, is a Jaguar. I've got the frame somewhat straight on it. I will start streaming that a little bit next week.